This is another reason to read poetry. After their 30th anniversary, marriage became a slow crawl to nowhere for Henry and Ruby. They couldn't afford a divorce or marriage counseling, so to pass the time and maintain a scrap of civility, they began reading poetry to one another before sleep. At breakfast, they had tea and cinnamon toast, with a poem or two by Billy Collins. A month passed. They read in the evening, too. Ruby was puzzled when she noticed that her blue cup, the one with the chipped rim, made her feel, well, joyful. Henry discovered that frost no longer formed on their bedroom window. After 3 months, all their worn and wrinkled what-ifs and if-onlys folded themselves one day, marched down the hall, and leaped into the linen closet. A year passed. Winds whispered happy little songs. Trees talked to Henry and Ruby in different shades of green. A decade flew by. Their love has ripened so much that the fruit is about to fall from the tree. But they have no time to worry about that, because this evening they will share sugar cookies and a pot of tea with Mary Oliver. And they will celebrate the miraculous first flight of a redbird chick who didn't even know it had wings.
This, whenever people ask me about my family, I think this poem says as much about my family as I care to tell anyone. This is called First TV. Can you do my mother?
I don't know. I've never met your mother.
Yeah.
I'll try.
My mother took a moral stand against it, said television was the work of the devil, said my father's wanting it showed how weak he really was. But for once, he stood firm. It was a blonde GE with a 12-inch screen. A blonde whore my mother couldn't have hated more. After supper, we sat on the sofa in the dark, my mother wedged in the middle, hands over her ears, back straight, her worn leather Bible on her lap. My father switched it on. Roller derby came at us like a train on fire. Women on skates trying to kill one another. Knees to the midsection, elbows to the neck, hair pulling, eye gouging. Suddenly my mother leaned forward and yelled,
Kill her! Oh, kill her! Hit her in the
She jabbed us with her elbows, moved to the edge of the sofa, her Bible splayed at her feet like an injured player. During a commercial, she read aloud from John 12:46.
I am come a light into the world, that whosoever believeth on me should not abide in darkness.
Amen, she said, as the men took the track. She marked her place with her finger, sat forward again, and yelled,
Kill him! Kick him! That's it. Oh, hurt him.
My father excused himself to get a glass of water. I sat on the floor to escape her sharp elbow. And years after this is the way I remember her. Alone, agitated, that empty space around her expanding, the wild, festering pleasure she took in wrestling, boxing, and roller derby. That Bible, always within reach, proof to all that a better place awaited her. Cindy's going to do one called Maxine Elaborates on how she met Hackmuth. Hackmuth is a character I use quite a lot in my short fiction things. His claim to fame is he truly is the most miserable man on earth. And, he takes a walk every day around 4th Avenue to hang out with other miserable people to make sure that he's still the most miserable. So he goes to bed every night happy that he's achieved his goal for his life one day at a time. And this is when Maxine meets Heckman at the Salvation Army, whatever, meet. I think your reading was cold. This has never been...
Yeah, I've never read this.
Okay, don't read it too fast.
Okay.
It's too beautiful to...
Maxine elaborates on how she met Hackmuth. I don't have time for formalities. At the senior center, I pick up my food tray, find someone who looks interesting, and start talking. That's how I met Hackmuth. He's not exactly the kind of friend you dream about. Truth is, he ain't much of a friend at all. But at my age, one has to make do. Besides, he has a lost soul look that I like. Wild gray hair, bushy gray beard, ruddy face. He was staring down with sad, watery eyes that looked like they were about to fall into the dish of fruit cocktail. I led off with one of my surefire stories, guaranteed to get a conversation going with any old geezer. It was about Alice the hen. When I was a kid, I had this pet hen with red feathers, Alice, who thought she was a rooster. I'd wake up early enough to watch her from our kitchen window. I liked how she strutted about on her pre-sunrise inspection, head bobbing this way and that, clucking, stopping to scratch and peck at something important she saw in the dirt before she hopped to the top of her coop. I paused, took a sip of coffee, and waited for Hackmuth to look up from his fruit cocktail, which he was staring at, puzzled, like Adam in the garden, trying to think of his 6 millionth name for some strange insect. I thought maybe he'd give me a wink or a smile, but he didn't take his eyes off the fruit cocktail. Some people have problems with canned fruit cocktail. They think the maraschino cherry is poison. But most of us here have eaten out of dumpsters. No red-dyed cherry will hurt us. So I went on, adding a little more punch, working up to the big climax. Once Alice was on top of her coop, she raised her head to the sky, flapped her wings, and let it rip. You ain't never heard a crow like that. It sounded like a tiny dog with its head caught in a vise. Then, after she finished crowing, she hopped down and strutted around again, clucking here, clucking there, like she'd just taken her place in the natural order of things, with her being on top. By now, Hackmuth was eating his fruit cocktail. I was grateful for that. I didn't fancy wasting my charm on a dead man. But he still didn't acknowledge my existence. So I wound up with a flourish. I said, Alice's call was twice as inspirational as any sermon you have ever heard. It was as formative of deep soul as all the readings I've done from the Bible. Because, you see, that crow of hers wasn't learned from no Learn How to Crow in 10 Easy Lessons book. It was Alice's own joyous sermon, preached in her own voice, a voice that still lives inside me, a voice that tells me it don't matter who you are or what crazy noise you make, or if you paint your hair metallic blue. If you speak your own truth, you fling open those heavy gates that imprison you, and before you know it, you are singing your own song. I moved in closer, inches from Hackmuth's face. So sing out, brother. Sing out, because there's only one person in this world that sings your song. Don't hold back nothing. Hackmuth took a last bite of his fruit cocktail, paused, and looked up at me with those bloodhound eyes of his. So I puffed up and crowed at him again. It was a risk. You crow in someone's face, you never know what's going to happen. I've been hauled in for less. For the longest time, Hackmuth just stared at me, exactly like he was staring at his fruit cocktail. And just as I was sucking in some air, fixing to crow at him again, he said, "Do you want my maraschino cherry?" Well, you hear something like that. When someone offers you his maraschino cherry, it melts your heart. That cherry was the beginning of our friendship. It's been pretty much the same ever since. Me pitching hardballs, Hackmuth lobbing back maraschino cherries.
Could someone tell me how long we've been going?
26 minutes, 31 seconds. More or less.
Okay, this one's called 74. This one's called Vietnamese soup. I like Vietnamese soup. Anybody like? Okay. Brotherhood, sisterhood. Don't ask me to name my deepest feelings or tell you what fierce heat lies in my heart. Not today, anyway. Today I rage with the unwanted passion of sure defeat, a manufactured man constructed carelessly of twigs and leaves. And when I'm feeling this way, I find it useful to ask, what do I want one more time before a gale sweeps this foliage away? Could I use more knowledge and insight into the human soul? Not really. I don't make good use of what little I have now. What I really want is one more bowl of Vietnamese soup. I want to steep myself in the steamy odors of basil, ginger, star anise, and the salty, sweet taste of hoisin sauce. I want to feel the snap of fresh bean sprouts, the slithering smoothness of steamy rice noodles as I lift them into my mouth with chopsticks. And while I'm at it, I'd like a large window in the restaurant and a strong wind to make the glass tremble. I'd like to see my teachers, counselors, ex-wives, and self-help gurus lined up outside with their faces pressed to the glass, looking in with perplexed piety, trying to figure out how I ever got to be this happy.
New shoes?
Oh, am I next?
No, I am. But do you want to say anything about it?
No. Except I don't understand this poem.
New shoes. He walks out of the pick and save carrying his old shoes and wearing his new ones. At first, he's high-stepping like a drum major. But a block away, his new shoes feel intensely uncomfortable. They are longer and narrower than his old ones. They don't bend. The soles hit flat on the sidewalk. He veers left, overcorrects, and stumbles right. This is dangerous. He hears a chugging sound and discovers each shoe has a little motor in it. And each motor has a mind of its own. over to a bench next to a small lake. He takes off his new shoes, puts on his old ones, and tosses the new ones into the lake. He watches them putt away, totally uncoordinated, bobbing this way and that, wobbling their way to someplace he personally would never consider going.
This one's called Massive Impermanence. We're sort of edging in thematically towards Dharma box, if you get the subtlety of our... Excuse me, I need another drink of water. Massive impermanence. On the TV, over the bar, the Yankees are playing the Red Sox. A bearded man sits next to me and orders a martini, very dry with 3 olives. Discriminating, I think. I ordered the same. We talk. We both hate the Yankees and airports. Turns out he's a physicist from Caltech who is looking for the God particle. I eat one of my olives. Sounds religious, I say. He finishes off his martini in one gulp, but doesn't touch his olives. The thing is, he says, we still can't account for why this bar and these martinis, and even you and I, have mass. Everything has a sound, the same sound. Everything's in motion, but just why these olives are olives and why this gin is gin and garbage is garbage, we don't have a clue. The real question is, why doesn't everything just fall apart? Why don't you and I just vanish? Poof. I consider this and suggest that maybe we should order another martini before we do the baby rockers. Good idea, he says. So we toast to our temporary solidity. Then I close my eyes for a few seconds to see if I can experience my God particles. And for a moment, I'm a part of one big cauldron of God's soup, and I feel a great kinship with olives, the Yankees, this Caltech physicist. But when I open my eyes, the physicist isn't there. He's gone. So has his glass and his leftover olives. I feel a little giddy and happy to be back.
Beliefs. My mother believed that if you drank milk with cherry pie, you'd die. Milk with fish was less dangerous, but still life-threatening. She believed that masturbation would make a man blind, insane, and crippled. She believed that women didn't do such things. Once, she believed that on the following Tuesday at 3:37 p.m., Jesus would come again and all good people would be swept up to the heavens. She believed my father would be left behind. That Tuesday morning, she prayed and sang and cooked my father a nice goodbye breakfast. She even gave him a goodbye peck on the cheek. When Jesus didn't come, she blamed my dad. I'm an old man now, and I've discovered I'm capable of coming up with a belief about practically anything, especially things I know nothing about. I can even believe in an afterlife and not believe in it at the same time. Let me say that again. I can believe in an afterlife and not believe in it at the same time. And I'm happy to report that my eyesight is reasonably good and I still have my wits about me. However, I do have a slight limp. I'm still a little queasy about drinking milk with cherry pie. And every Tuesday, I glance up at 3:37 to see if anything is stirring.
if it's okay with you and you've got a promise, if you leave at intermission, I will feel bad. We're going to have a 5-minute intermission. And then the second section will not be as long. It's only about a third as long. But it has to deal with this book. So I hope you come back.